While everyone laughed at the old man, only one poor girl chose kindness. She had no idea that this single moment would change her life forever.
Nobody in Ajegunle Market knew the old man's real name. They only knew what they could see: torn slippers, a walking stick wrapped in old wire, and a shirt so faded you couldn't tell if it was once blue or green. They called him Baba Rags, and every single day they laughed at him. But nobody, not one trader, not one customer, not even the market women who threw insults at him like stones. Nobody knew that the tired old man limping through that market was the father of Ardwell Johnson, the billionaire CEO whose face was on every business magazine in the country. This is the story of Amara, a poor mango seller who showed kindness to a man the whole world had already judged, and how one act of decency changed her life forever. Amara was 19 years old, and she had been selling mangoes at the corner of Ajegunle Market since she was 12. Her mother had died of a fever nobody could afford to treat, and her father had left when she was too small to remember his face. She lived with her old grandmother, Mama Ngozi, in a single room with a tin roof that sang loudly whenever it rained. Every morning, before the sun had even decided to rise properly, Amara would walk to the market with a basin of mangoes balanced on her head, her feet bare against the cold earth, her spirit somehow still bright despite everything life had refused to give her. She was beautiful, not in the way magazines describe beauty, but in the way that made people stop and look twice. Dark, smooth skin that seemed to hold sunlight even on cloudy days, eyes that were gentle but never dull, a smile she gave freely, even to people who had never once smiled back at her. Amara, come and buy better clothes now. See as you're dressed on like beggar, the other traders would tease. She would only laugh and say, my dress may be torn, but my heart is not. And she would go back to arranging her mangoes, calling out to customers with a voice too warm for someone who had suffered so much. It was a Tuesday, the kind of hot, dusty Tuesday that made everyone in the market short tempered. When the old man first appeared, he walked slowly, each step guided by his wire wrapped stick, his back bent like a question mark that life had never bothered to answer. His clothes were old, yes, but clean, patched carefully, as though someone had tried very hard to keep them presentable with very little to work with. He stopped by a stall to ask for a cup of water. Old man, this is not charity house, oh! The trader, a loud woman named Ajegunle, snapped at him. If you no get money, come out for my front! The other traders laughed. Someone threw an empty sachet water bag at his feet. A group of boys nearby began to mimic his limp, dragging their legs and cackling. The old man said nothing. He simply lowered his head, the way people do when they have learned that dignity is a luxury they can no longer afford to demand, and turned to walk away. Amara had seen everything. Something in her chest tightened. Not pity, exactly, but recognition. She knew what it felt like to be looked at and judged before anyone bothered to ask your name. Baba, she called out, jogging toward him with 2 ripe mangoes in her hand. Please, wait. The old man turned, surprised. Most people didn't call out to him unless it was to insult him. Here, Amara said, pressing the mangoes into his weathered palm. And come, let me get you water, free of charge. The old man's eyes, tired, cloudy, but still sharp somehow, studied her face for a long moment. Why? He asked quietly. Why would you help an old beggar nobody wants near their stall? Amara smiled. Because you're thirsty, Baba, and because kindness shouldn't need a reason. From that day, the old man began coming to Amara's stall every single day. Not to buy, because he rarely had money, but simply to sit on the small wooden stool beside her mango basin and talk. The traders mocked her too, now. Amara don't find her mate, oh, beggar and beggar! Ajegunle would laugh, and others would join in. Amara ignored them. Every day, she gave the old man a piece of fruit, a cup of water, sometimes a small wrap of rice if business had been good. She never once asked him for anything in return. She never once asked who he was, where he came from, or why a man his age wandered alone with no family in sight. You don't ask me questions like the others, the old man said one afternoon, watching her arrange her mangoes into a careful pyramid. Everybody carries something heavy, Baba, Amara said. You don't need to explain your load to me for me to help you carry it. The old man was quiet for a long moment. Then So softly she almost didn't hear it, he said. You remind me of someone I lost a long time ago. Amara didn't press him. She simply reached over and placed her hand gently over his, the way you comfort someone without needing words. Weeks passed like this. Rainy days, dusty days, days when Amara sold nothing and went home hungry but still saved a mango for the old man anyway. Mama Ngozi would sometimes scold her. Amara, you cannot feed the whole world when you yourself don't have enough. Mama, Amara would reply, if I wait until I have enough before I give, I will never give anything at all. Then came the Tuesday that would rewrite the story of Amara's life. A convoy of gleaming black SUVs rolled into the narrow street beside Ajegunle Market. Vehicles far too polished, far too powerful, for a place where potholes swallowed cars whole. Men in dark suits stepped out first, scanning the crowd with sharp, alert eyes. The market fell into a stunned, whispering silence. And then, from the middle vehicle, stepped a tall man in an impeccable navy suit, his face instantly recognizable from 1,000 billboards and business news headlines. Ardwale Johnson, CEO of Johnson Continental Holdings, one of the wealthiest men on the continent. Gasps rippled through the market like wind through dry grass. He walked, not toward the expensive shops at the market's entrance, but straight through the crowd, past the stunned traders, until he reached the small mango stall at the corner. And then, in front of the entire market, in front of Aya Kudi, in front of the boys who had once mimicked the old man's limp, Ardwale Johnson dropped to his knees beside the old man's stool and embraced him. Papa, he said, his voice breaking. I found you. I finally found you. The market went utterly silent. Aya Kudi's mouth hung open. The boys who had mocked the old man stood frozen, their mockery drying up in their throats like water on hot sand. The old man everyone had called Baba Rags, the man they had thrown water sachets at, the man they had refused a single cup of water, was Chief Emeka Johnson, father of one of the richest men in the country. Later, seated in the quiet comfort of a private room, Amara would learn the whole story. 6 months earlier, Chief Emeka had suffered a stroke that left parts of his memory scattered like beads from a broken necklace. During his confusion, he had wandered from his home during a period of renovation, and in the chaos of construction workers, new security staff, and family members traveling for business, no one had noticed he was missing until it was far too late. Ardwale had searched every hospital, every police station, spent millions on private investigators, offered rewards on television. But his father, lost and disoriented, had wandered into Ajegunle Market and simply stayed. Too proud, in his confused state, to ask for real help. Too forgotten by a city that looks away from broken old men. Until Amara looked at him and saw a person, not a burden. My son, Chief Emeka said, gripping Ardwale's hand, tears sliding down his weathered face. Everyone here saw a beggar. Everyone except this girl. She gave me water when I was thirsty. She gave me food when I had nothing. She gave me dignity when the whole world had stripped it from me. Ardwale turned to Amara, his composed CEO expression completely dissolved into raw gratitude. You saved my father's life. Do you understand that? While an entire market mocked him, you were the only one who saw a human being. Amara, still in her torn wrapper, still smelling faintly of ripe mangoes, simply shook her head. I didn't do anything special, sir. I only did what anyone should do. No, Ardwale said firmly. You did what almost no one does anymore. The following weeks moved like a dream Amara wasn't sure she'd wake up from. Ardwale Johnson didn't simply hand her money and walk away, though he did clear every debt Mama Ngozi had ever owed, and rebuild their small tin-roofed room into a proper house with running water and a roof that no longer sang during rainstorms. He did more. He discovered that Amara, despite dropping out of school at 12 to sell mangoes, had taught herself to read using old newspapers customers left behind at her stall. He discovered she had a sharp, calculating mind for numbers. She had been managing complex mental arithmetic for her mango business for years, tracking profit margins that would impress any accountant. He enrolled her in school. Then, years later, in university. He didn't simply give her charity. He gave her opportunity, the one thing poverty had always stolen from her first. Chief Emeka, fully recovered under proper medical care, insisted on one thing above all else. Wherever Amara goes, he told his son, I want to be there to see the woman she becomes. She gave me back my dignity when I had nothing. I intend to make sure she never has nothing again. Years later, Ajegunle Market looked much the same. The same dust, the same noise, the same traders calling out to customers. But there was a new building at the market's edge now. A clean, well-lit community center funded entirely by the Johnson Continental Foundation, offering free healthcare, food, and shelter to the elderly and homeless of the area. Above the entrance, a simple plaque read, For every person the world walks past, you are seen here. Iya Kudi, the loud trader who had once thrown insults at Chief Emeka, was now one of the center's most dedicated volunteers, having been humbled and quietly forgiven by both Amara and the chief himself. And Amara, now a university graduate, now an executive at the very foundation that bore the Johnson name, still visited the market every single Tuesday, not in expensive clothes to show off her new life, but simply to sit, the way she always had, and share a mango with anyone who looked like they needed a moment of kindness. Because Amara never forgot the lesson that had shaped her entire life. You never truly know who is standing in front of you. The person the world ignores today may be the very person whose story changes your life tomorrow. And even if it doesn't, even if kindness never comes back to you the way it came back to Amara, it was never about the reward. It was about being the kind of person who helps, simply because someone needed help. If this story touched you, remember, the next time you meet someone the world has cast aside, look closer. You never know whose story you're standing inside of.